Do you have solo economic dependency? That is, if you aren't working, you aren't making money. The Art of Passive Income podcast is the solution. Discover passive income models so you can enjoy life on your own terms. Let freedom ring.
Hey, it's Mark Podolsky, the Land Geek, with your favorite niche real estate website, www.thelandgeek.com. And before we talk about today's guest, which is really going to be geeky and cool and interesting, I'm really excited about it. I do want to formally introduce my Six Sigma co-host, Scott Todd from scotttodd.net, landmodo.com. And most importantly, if you are not, which I don't know why anyone would not be, but if you are not automating your Craigslist postings, hostingdomination.com/The Land Geek. Scott Todd, how are you?
Mark, I am awesome. How are you?
I'm in a geeky mood.
You know, our guest is easy to tie our two biggest interests, right? You know, like your two favorite words are automation and free.
Right.
I think that the most people listening to this podcast, their two favorite words might be, you know, real estate and development or programming, maybe.
We have a lot of software engineers in our group. And I think the reason we attract so many engineers is because of the systems and the processes, and we apply it to real estate. So today's guest is going to really help us fill in some of those geeky gaps. But before we talk to John Sonmez at simpleprogrammer.com and formally introduce him, it's time to plug away. Today's podcast is sponsored by Loan Geek. Automate getting paid via ACH and credit card using Loan Geek. No note setup fees, 50 cents flat for ACH, 2.75% for credit cards. Set it and forget it. There's no better solution out there. Loan Geek. I remember when I used to manually have to put in my loans, and now I just have to put in a little software and it's done for me. Loan Geek. Just email support@thelandgeek.com for more information to get into the next beta wave.
God, Mark, can we like get someone to really record that for you? Because I don't know. I think you need like someone a little bit more peppier or something, you know, someone excited, like manage your loans this way.
I think John Sonmez liked it.
I think so.
I did. It was definitely interesting. So got my attention. So yeah.
All right. Let's talk about John. John Sonmez is the founder of simpleprogrammer.com and author of Soft Skills, the Software Developer's Life Manual. He created Simple Programmer with the goal of making the complex simple. As a software developer, he often finds that people tend to have a way of making things appear more complex than they really are. He discovered that often the simplest solutions were the best ones, although not always the easiest to derive. And he also retired early in real estate, which, John, tell us about that. What were you doing in real estate?
So, you know, I sort of stumbled into it. I wasn't a genius. I didn't have a super master plan. All I know is that, you know, when I was 18 or I guess about 19 and I moved out of my parents' house, I was looking for somewhere to live and I didn't want to pay rent because I just felt instinctively like paying rent would be a waste of money. So I said, I got to buy a house. So I basically ended up, I mean, at 19 or so, you know, trying to buy a house. It's not exactly easy. No credit history, right? Not even a lot of money. I didn't really have a down payment, but I found this shack for like $68,000 in Boise, Idaho. And I figured I could get some roommates or something, and I couldn't get a loan, right? I finally, I got this loan at like a 13% interest rate with a 2-year prepayment penalty. And I had to dig a ditch to connect the water line to the house, with the sewer line, in order to seal the deal. But I did it, and I got the property, and I still own that property to this day. It's worth a lot more than what I paid for it. I'm out of that 13% interest rate, but that was really what got me started into real estate investment in. And I didn't really think about, the long-term effects. I just knew that this was maybe like a smart move to do. But what really got me pushed into it was when I got this opportunity as a software developer. I got this job very shortly after, when I was 19, paying like $75 an hour, right, in LA. And I went down there, went down to LA, and I thought, oh man, I'm rich. I'm just like, I'm rolling in it. I calculated my income was like $160,000 a year, and I had like per diem, so I was like, it was mostly tax free. And then, so I'm running the math, I'm doing the calculations. I'm like, okay, how long will it be before I'm a millionaire? And so I thought, okay, well, let's see, 160,000, take out taxes that are out of there. So maybe that'll leave me with like maybe 120, 110. I gotta live. I could live cheaply off of like $30,000 a year. So I finally came up with a calculation. I was like, okay, I could save, if I socked away everything I had, $70,000 a year, maybe. So then I'm running the calculations. I'm like, okay, wait a minute. That's 10 years. It's only 700,000. 12, 13. Oh, wait a minute. Inflation. I forgot about inflation. So as I run the numbers, I'm like, oh crap, I'm going to have to save $70,000 a year for the next like 15 to 20 years. And then I'll just be a millionaire. And that's not even rich. And I'm making a crap ton of money, as a young kid. And how am I going to even hold on to this job? And I got to live frugally for all this time. There's got to be a better way. So I started researching how do people make money in the U.S. specifically, and it kept coming down to real estate. And so that's what really pushed me into it. As I said, wow, either I'm going to work my butt off for years and save every dime that I make, or I'm going to figure out a better way. And that's where I started looking at real estate.
I love it. Scott, Todd, what do you think?
I think it's wise. I mean, the fact that you went out and you did the math, you figured out, what it's going to take. I think that's a missing step for a lot of people, that they don't sit there and do the basic math, right? Like they don't figure out what their end game is going to be or what their goal needs to be, and then back into everything. I mean, that's the simplest way to do it, is get down even to the smallest detail of how many offers you need to make in order to move the needle and accomplish the goals that you want.
Yeah. And being a developer or a programmer, how did you incorporate that skill set with real estate?
So, I definitely am big on systems. I try to systemize things, right? So I want to make things as automated as possible. So that led me pretty quickly. Well, I won't say that again. I like to learn things by making mistakes and getting beat up, and then I learn. So it eventually led me down the path of using property management. But I will have to admit that I managed my own properties for some time, and I'm a pretty big guy. I go knock on the door and say, give me the rent, and it doesn't work.
If you had Loan Geek, it would have.
Okay. Well, yeah. There you go. But so I ended up like figuring out, how can I streamline things? How can I get this to be fully automated as much as possible? I don't want to take phone calls. I don't want to fix toilets and stuff. And so I came up with, processes. I've got processes for doing everything that I do real estate wise, including making offers and figuring out what is a good deal. And I wrote software to, figure that out when I was younger, when I was first getting into it. But now I use property management companies. And so I think that skill set, I think, like you said at the beginning of the podcast, this idea of like trying to automate things and get them as much automated as possible. That's something that a lot of software developers, including myself, highly valuable. As I run my business, I do that all the time. And so that's sort of what connected the dots, I think, for me.
So you have several passive income revenue streams. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah.
So can you walk us through them?
Sure. So, I sort of structure it this way. Like at the end of everything is real estate, right? Because that's obviously that's the one that's the most reliable, that you can count on. It's the only thing I consider true passive income, because it always exists, right? I mean, aside from nuclear war, and things like that, pretty much real estate is always going to exist. So I sort of funnel things from my other passive income into real estate ultimately, and that's where I put the biggest accumulation. But so I've got the real estate. I've got a business which I consider mostly passive income, because I sell through Simple Programmer a lot of informational products online, and so sales roll in overnight while I'm sleeping, and that kind of runs itself. I've also set up processes within that to I've got staff hired, but they've all got standard operating procedures, and I go away for like a week or so and everything runs, so I don't have to do a lot there, besides make it grow. And then I've done some courses for a company called Pluralsight, where I've done developer training courses. It's sort of like an authorship program where I've created technical training for developers, and that income, just having my courses out there. Last time I did a course, I think was 3 years ago, and I still pull in a good couple $100,000 a year of income from those courses that they're paying me royalties. Then I've written a book that the Soft Skills Software Developers Life Manual, which pulls in, it's a traditionally published book, so I only get about 10% of the royalties, but it still ends up being a good $10,000 to $30,000 a year, depending on book sales. And then trying to think what else I've got set up. I've got a couple of apps in the app stores. Not much, comes in from those, but that, little pieces add up here and there. And that's probably the most of it, right? Everything else, I think, that I have that passive income is really probably coming through my Simple Programmer business from the different pieces of that. I mean, I consider YouTube videos are kind of passive income, right? Because you make a lot of YouTube videos, you put them out there, you're automatically getting income on those YouTube videos, whether you're produce more or not, just from the views. Same thing with a blog. When you've got products that you sell through that blog, eventually those streams would die if you don't feed them, but they're pretty passive and they last quite a while once you build up enough content. So
I like it. Scott, Todd, what do you think?
I think you got a good strategy for passive income. I think that what I hear, John, is I hear you saying, that you're basically feeding into this passive income machine, and you're leveraging all of the channels, right? It's not just one channel that you're leveraging. You're leveraging YouTube. You're writing books. You're creating courses. You're taking, like, and I don't know the exact flow, but you could be taking those profits too and putting them back into real estate to buy more, which is continuing to feed the monster, and then it just keeps piling back up, right? That's kind of like the Pat Flynn model, like that's what Pat's done. I don't think he's done anything with real estate, but where do you think someone starting off to build their passive income? I think it's real estate, but where do you think that someone who wants to start off building their passive income should really look?
Well, I think real estate, I would agree with you. I think that's the best place. And like you suggested, you're right in your guess, is that I do funnel everything from all those other passive income sources ultimately into real estate, because that's the thing that is the most secure and truly the most passive, right? I mean, a business will last, even a product, even automated, put apps in the apps or whatever it is, those things have a life cycle and they will die out over time if they're not fed. Whereas real estate is pretty much going to last your generation and generations after you. So that's why that's my true security. But I think that there's a couple of things that I consider with it, which is that I always look at income sources, especially passive income sources, to have different attributes, right? I mean, you could consider certain stock options trading strategies as passive income sources, especially if you involve dividend. I mean, there's some complex. I used to do some options trading, which you could basically make a passive income out of, as long as you're disciplined and have a set of rules. But like I said, a business can be sort of a passive income source. But I think what it comes down to is this idea that these different attributes. So real estate, in my mind, is one that has a medium yield, right? Not the highest yield, but I'd say a medium yield. It has a very, very low risk. If you're doing buy and hold type of, if you're investing, not speculating, but it requires a higher level than average skill in order to get into the game. So I think that's why you get that sort of attribute mix. Whereas something like let's say, stock market investing, like just like investing in S&P 500, it has a very, very low yield. It's not, you're getting a few percentage points, whereas real estate you could get 10 to 20%, I think, return on your investment,
or 300 to 1,000%.
Yeah,
you raw land.
Okay, but yeah. I mean, but in general, like what I do, buy and hold rental, residential rental. But I think with stock, again, like I said, with the S&P 500, your risk is really low, but your return is really low, and your skill level is really low. You don't need to know much to do that, right? And then you've got liquidity too, I think, is another factor in those. So I think when you look at the investment vehicles, right, I think what I would recommend for most people, kind of based on that, without going too, I could talk for hours on each one of the things, as I've analyzed them all with spreadsheets and all that. But basically, it comes down to this for me: is real estate is ultimately the best option, because it produces such a high yield and it has such a low risk. So I always recommend that people get started in that as soon as possible. Go ahead and because it doesn't, and it takes a while to get that snowball rolling. So start it now, whatever you can do. Almost no real estate investment is going to be bad 20 years down the road or 30 years down the road. Like, you could screw up and regret it in 5 years, but if you hold on to it, I guarantee in 20 years, you're not going to regret it. Even if, not that you shouldn't be smart about it, but I'm just saying, like, don't be afraid to make mistakes. So get started and get that skill right away. But then the second thing that I recommend is to start a business, because a business is something that has the highest return, I believe, but it also requires the highest skill and it has the highest risk. So it's not a great passive income source to rely on. That's why even me owning a business and when I put money into my business or invest time in it, I get the highest yield of anything that I could possibly do, because that's just, it's a ridiculous yield, but it's also the highest risk thing that I do. And I know it's not going to be around for ever, and I have to maintain it. It's also very low passivity. I don't know, passivity, but it's not as passive, right? So I am taking all those profits I'm making from business, I'm dumping them into real estate, where I know that I've got a long and secure future, even though my yield might not be quite as high as I could from the business. So I honestly think that best thing to do for someone starting out is get real estate figured out, and because that's going to take you a long time. It's going to take you a lot of skill to get up to that, and there's a learning curve. Get a plan together so that you're investing in real estate, so you can start have something like buy a property every year or whatever your strategy ends up being. And then once you've got that figured out and you've got somewhere to put the money into, now go and try and make a business and make a whole ton of money so that you can put it into real estate, where you're going to be able to be more effective there and really take advantage of the leverage opportunity that you have. Because, and then also the length of time, it's going to take you time. You're not going to make a whole bunch of money. Depending on strategy, but if you're doing an investment, the kind of investment strategy I do over the long term, you're going to make a ton of money in real estate real quick. There's no such thing as getting rich quick in real estate. So
I don't know any get rich quick model, honestly. It's legal. I guess if you have a unicorn type of business like Instagram, let's say, but there's always outliers. As far as get rich quick vehicles, I don't know of any legal ones, or ones that are just total dumb luck. Like, it just like an Instagram. Scott, Todd, do you know anything like that?
If so, I probably wouldn't be talking to you right now, Mark.
Well, you thought it was land investing.
Well, I didn't think land investing was a get rich quick thing.
You replace your income in 17 months, 3 days. We have to define quick.
Yeah, true. I guess it's all depends on your perspective, right? But that 17 months and 3 days was not, it wasn't just like, okay, I mailed a few offers. I mailed 20 offers in 10 days, and all of a sudden all the money came in. It was a grind every single day. It was like, it was showing up every single day, 7 days a week, and trying to be as diligent as possible. And that's really what it takes, is making a number of key decisions that really get you to where you need to be. It becomes kind of like, Mark, in a few podcasts ago, I talked about, Grant Cardone's Be Obsessed or Be Average.
Oh, yeah.
I was obsessed with everything about land investing. Nothing else existed. Of course, my family, but when I had a moment, I was thinking about areas. I would scour the Google Earth looking for areas that I thought would be of interest. I spent lots of time on there. So it's not a get rich quick where you kick your feet back and let the money come to you. It was a grind.
Yeah, actually, I agree. So John, 19, I don't know many 19-year-olds that are thinking about long-term wealth or passive income, unless, your father is like Scott Todd or myself, where that's like, what we think about all day long, right? And then we pass that down to our children, and our children ignore us. And then we're like, I know you're ignoring me for now.
Yeah.
One day you'll thank me, and, here you go. Welcome to your first fourplex. We're going to get 3 renters in. That's going to be your first home. And then blah, blah, blah. And we're going to build your wealth from day one. But I digress. So John, how did you pick this up?
That's tough. I didn't really I came from a background. My dad was Air Force. So he was, we were kind of like lower middle class, right? So, because he was enlisted Air Force, he wasn't an officer or anything. So we moved around a lot. I didn't really have any, most of my life, I have not really had mentors. I've always said that I'm the bushwhacker. I go and I blaze the trails, and I make a lot of mistakes. I'm not afraid to make mistakes. That's the thing, is I'm not afraid to fail and to screw up. And I do all the time, but then I eventually figure it out. And that's, I think that's what happened here is just, I had this idea, I guess, to come back to your question, I had this idea that I didn't want to work for someone else for my whole life. Like I've always been sort of a rebel in the fact that I don't like people's rules. I don't like you to tell me what I'm qualified to do or not, or how I should live my life. And I wanted to have freedom. I wanted to get to a point where I could do what I wanted with my life. I sort of have this theory that in life, and I've kind of developed it over time, which is that we are all born with a mortgage on our lives, right? Because as soon as we're born, you have a debt to pay. Like you're a slave. Like we're not given an allotment of food and shelter and whatnot. We've got an upkeep cost. Every morning when we get up, it's like, bam, we're negative whatever, $100 or whatever it is, and you got to work that day to get to the positive. And so, I wanted to get to the point where I was even, where I was level, where I didn't have a mortgage. I paid off the mortgage on my life, and I didn't have to work for someone else as a slave in order to survive. And so that was the kind of thinking that was in my head is instead of saying this is how you're supposed to do it, you go to college, you get good grades, you get a job, you work for 50 years, and then you retire. My mindset was, how can I escape? How can I get out of this system? I'm a slave right now. I have slave owners that I have to work for, and I have to work to live, to eat. How can I get out? How can I break that system and get out of it? And that's what I was thinking from that age. I didn't, some of these thoughts are kind of, I didn't have the words for them that I have now, looking back and understanding what I'm trying to help other people to do now. But I had that feeling, I had that idea that I don't want to be trapped. I want to have freedom. And the only way to have freedom in this world is to have financial freedom.
I think you're a precocious kid, John, because I think most people discover that in their 40s. Or maybe late 30s, like they've got to go through so much pain, so much suffering. And then they wake up one day and be like, oh my gosh, I'm on the back nine of my life and I have no freedom. Right. And then they're in enough pain to go do something that makes them, a little uncomfortable, but also super excited and hopefully get to the next level in their life. But to do it as young as you did, when you've got, let's face it, girls, right? Like they're not interested. Like when you're 19, you're pretty much you're pretty much focused on hedonistic type of stuff, parties and girls and and all that stuff. And then one day you wake up, you're like, holy cow, where'd my 20s go? I've been working all this time, paying all these taxes, and I got nothing to show for it. And given that your dad was in the military, what did he think of this? Like, you kind of are like, I'm dropping out in a way and doing this alternative thing. And I wonder if he understood you.
Oh God, no, he didn't. I was just thinking about when I bought one of my townhouses, no offense to my dad, he's a great guy, but he did not get it. He gets it now, but he did not get it then. And, I bought this townhouse that was a good deal, right? I was putting 10% down on it, and and I was going to cash flow positive on this thing, and I ran the numbers and I worked it out, and I called him up excited to tell him I was buying this townhouse, and he basically, I don't know, I won't say the exact words, but it was basically, are you an effing idiot? You're buying a townhouse? Did you know a townhouse is and he just went off, and he's like, I can't believe you would do this. It's so stupid. Why would you do this? And you're going to rent this thing out. And it was this long conversation of him just browbeating the heck out of me for being such an idiot. And yeah, and then the next property I bought, I pretty much stopped calling him when I started buying properties, and it took a long time to really have those investments pay off. But I knew I had the plan in my head. I'd run it through. I think at that point, or at some point, I'd read Gary Keller's book, The Millionaire Real Estate Investor, and I was like, okay, because I like that book because he charts it out. If you've read that book, and he's like, this is what's going to happen over 30 years. Like, this is a realistic. This is what you got the patience, you got the time. This is how what you're gonna see, and to me it made sense. I did my own spreadsheets, and I was like, okay, this is a plan. Like, if I buy one house a year, in 30 years, I will guaranteed be rich. Like, there's no way this is not possible. So this is, and that was worst case scenario. Best case scenario was it happens in 15 or 10 years, with property going up. But even if property didn't go up and it just paid off the houses in 30 years, I'd be able to sell the house that was completely paid off that I bought on the first year and live off of that and live for the next 30 years. So in my mind, I was like, this is the way. There's no way that this can't happen. But yeah, I faced a lot of resistance, not just from my dad, but from everyone around me. I mean, especially my friend, like you said, being in the 20s, like, I would go out to a club and we'd be, it'd be like 2 a.m. and I'd be like, I'd go home and everyone else would be crashed out at my place, and it's like 7 a.m. and I'm up and I'm getting ready and I'm going to work, right? Because that it was like I kind of towed the line. I would have more acquaintances than friends, right? It was like I would not let them bring me down. I was always the guys that was going to work, that was getting stuff done, and still maintaining somewhat of a social life, but they didn't understand it.
Awesome.
See, he was obsessed, Mark. He was obsessed.
And that's what it takes, honestly.
I love that book. That is such a great book.
That book is good.
Yep.
All right. Well, John, it's time to put you on the spot now and ask you for your tip of the week, a website, a resource, a book, something actionable where the art of passive income listeners can go right now, improve their businesses, improve their lives. What do you got?
So, I was thinking about suggesting some of Grant Cardone's stuff, but it sounds like your listeners are already, you've probably already told them about that based on that. I love his stuff.
Suggest away. What do you got?
But I just came back from Tony Robbins' Unleash the Power Within this weekend, and I am a big fan. I'm not 100% of everything that Tony Robbins does, but I think that going to I went to Date with Destiny last year, and this was my first time going to Unleash the Power Within, and I think going to a Tony Robbins event seminar is a life-changing kind of experience that a lot of people that if you're stuck in a kind of mindset, if you feel like you can't do things, if you really have a lot of things that are holding you back in life, so this is he's a great resource for like getting you unblocked mentally and making you like really, connect with your passion and to really, go for it. So I think that's what I'd recommend is go get connected in some way with a Tony Robbins event, whether you go to Unleash the Power Within, or even if you just pick up his tapes. He's got some really good tapes. I guess they're DVDs or digital downloads now, but he's definitely been someone that's really that I found to be really inspiring in my life, and I mean there's drastic changes since I started paying attention to his stuff. So
yeah, I love it. I love Hour of Power on YouTube. Fantastic video. Very motivational. I am now taking cold showers because of Tony Robbins.
Yep.
And I, at first I hated it, and now I'm like waking up and I'm just, like I feel alive.
I see you're doing the treadmill walking too. That's have you lost some weight or on a weight loss program?
Yeah, Johnny, you don't know me, but before, a year ago I was 500 pounds.
Are you serious?
I'm just joking. No. Sitting's a new smoking. I've always been kind of fit and always kind of been like, into that kind of stuff. So I just got a treadmill desk years ago. And I'll tell you what, what's interesting though, is when I first got it, I did quickly lose 15 pounds.
Yeah.
And my wife's like, you're too thin. So now I'm back to eating carbs, but
okay.
But I do think there is something about the mental piece of it. Like we're talking and I'm walking and, I love it. So.
Yeah, I had a treadmill disc set up for a while, and I used to do it about like a couple hours a day while I was working. And then whenever I got on calls, I would be on the treadmill. That's why I related because call time is the perfect time for treadmill desk. Right now, I've got a standing desk and I just stand all day long now because I found I could only do the treadmill for about a few hours, and I'd up the incline and stuff like that, and it worked out well. But now I'm experimenting with the standing desk, and I'm liking that too. For the same reason, like you said too, it's just that mental. Like I feel like I'm sharper when I'm standing than I am when I'm just sitting there. So.
Yeah, I find my feet hurt when I stand, and they don't hurt when I'm walking, but I have flat feet.
Okay.
Scott Todds swears by this foam thing. He's got the standing desk.
Okay.
I do love my standing desk. I've got the standing desk. I got the cushion pad underneath it.
Yep.
When I stand, and then when I get tired, I lower it because mine I can raise or lower. I'll lower it and I'll sit on a bar stool or something. But I find like when I'm doing podcasts or calls or coaching sessions, I just feel like I have more energy when I'm standing up. As opposed to just kind of sitting there, you feel like tired, drained, your body hurts, your back hurts.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I got the pad too, and it's I'm pretty happy with it so far. So
yeah, it's great. Well, Scott Todd, what's your tip of the week?
All right, Mark. This one I am. It's like I'm excited. I don't have it yet, but I've ordered it, and the website is wrightsnotes.com, like WRIGHTS notes.com. And what's cool about this is you can literally create your own customizable notebook. So like you choose the pages. So if there's a format that like you like want to follow on a daily basis, or a format that you want to stick to, maybe you're a software designer, software developer, or you need the wire. I just went blank. The wire wireframes.
Oh yeah.
Let's say you need paper with wireframes or notebooks with wireframes. You can choose that as an option. You can choose graph paper, line paper, blank paper. You can literally get down to like create the entire notebook based on the design that you want. That's pretty cool.
That's cool. I love it. Well, my tip of the week is learn more about John at simpleprogrammer.com. And John, what can we learn at your site?
It's kind of funny. I say everything, and I'm not kidding, because what I really do, like what my business is now, is that I teach software developers all of the life skills that are non-technical. So you can kind of think, like I mentioned Tony Robbins, I kind of try to be the Tony Robbins for software developers. And I go from all the areas of your life, from everything from fitness to finance to relationships and mental attitude and success and motivational, type of things. All of that I pretty much cover there. So a lot of it is on my YouTube channel, which is you can find from the Simple Programmer site. But I pretty much run the gambit. I read like 60, 70 books a year, a lot in the self-development space. So I sort of consolidate a lot of that, and and I try to live it as I'm trying to improve my life, and I share that. So
yeah, I'll be honest, when I first saw Simple Programmer, I thought, oh, this is only going to be interesting to our software developer, software engineer friends. But it really is, there really is sort of this geeky Tony Robbins bend to simpleprogrammer.com that applies to everyone. So I'm bookmarking your site myself, and here's some, like, this is interesting. Like, here's some of the videos on here. Stop procrastinating. Work like it matters. Code your way out of debt. Now, code your way out of debt, I'm probably not going to do, but still, successful programmer mindset. Don't be effing lazy. How to deal with bad days. How to manage a full-time job, master's degree, and business all at once. Protect your meetings' productive time. What I wish I knew before I jumped into iOS Part 2. I mean, this is all very interesting stuff. The necessity of creativity, right? All the books I read in 2015. Here we go. I'm gonna look at this. 57 books he read. And it talks about how he picks his books. So this is cool. So I want to thank you, John. I want to thank all the Art of Passive Income listeners, and go to learn more at simpleprogrammer.com. And let's not forget, give Scott Todds some love. Go to landmodo.com/wholesale and get some wholesale land. But most importantly, you should go to postingdomination.com/the land geek and start automating your Craigslist postings, and give me some love. Go to frontierpropertiesusa.com, get some wholesale land if you can't find anything from Scott. And of course, go to thelandgeek.com, download for free the Passive Income Blueprint, get the ebook, How to Avoid the 3 Fatal Land Buy Mistakes, and get this always informative and engaging podcast delivered each week to your email inbox. And don't forget about automating your payments with loangeek.io. I want to thank all the listeners, and, just do us a favor. The biggest compliment we can get is if you subscribe, rate, and review the podcast. It takes about 20 seconds to do so. Do it. And let freedom ring. What do you think, Scott Todd?
Let freedom ring, baby.
John, say it. Let freedom ring.
Let freedom ring.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks for listening to the Art of Passive Income podcast. Start your journey at www.thelandgeek.com and www.scotttodd.net. Rate and review the podcast and email support@thelandgeek.com. Your screenshot for a free passive income launch kit.
I don't know why anyone would not be, but if you were not automating your Craigslist postings, postingdomination.com/the land geek. Scott Todd, how are you?
Mark, I am awesome. How are you?
I'm in a geeky mood.
Our guest is easy to tie our two biggest interests, right? Like your two favorite words are automation and free.
Right.
I think that the most people listening to this podcast, their two favorite words might be, real estate and development or programming, maybe.
We have a lot of software engineers in our
group.
And I think the reason we attract so many engineers is because of the systems and the processes, and we apply it to real estate. So today's guest is going to really help us fill in some of those geeky gaps. But before we talk to John Sonmez at simpleprogrammer.com and formally introduce him, it's time to plug away. Today's podcast is sponsored by Loan Geek. Automate getting paid via ACH and credit card using Loan Geek. No note setup fees, 50 cents flat. for ACH, 2.75% for credit cards. Set it and forget it. There's no better solution out there. Loan Geek. I remember when I used to manually have to put in my loans, and now I just have to put in a little software and it's done for me. Loan Geek. Just email support@thelandgeek.com for more information to get into.
Do you have solo economic dependency? That is, if you aren't working, you aren't making money. The Art of Passive Income podcast is the solution. Discover passive income models so you can enjoy life on your own terms. Let freedom ring.
Hey, it's Mark Podolsky, the Land Geek, with your favorite niche real estate website, www.thelandgeek.com. And before we talk about today's guest, which is really going to be geeky and cool and interesting, I'm really excited about it. I do want to formally introduce my Six Sigma co-host, Scott Todd from scotttodd.net, landmodo.com, and most importantly, if you are not the next beta wave.
God, Mark, can we get someone to really record that for you? Because I don't know. I think you need someone a little bit more peppier or something. Someone excited, manage your loans this way.
I think John Sonmez liked it.
I think so.
I did. It was definitely interesting. So got my attention. So yeah.
All right. Let's talk about John. John Sonmez is the founder of simpleprogrammer.com and author of Soft Skills, the Software Developer's Life Manual. He created Simple Programmer with the goal of making the complex simple. As a software developer, he often finds that people tend to have a way of making things appear more complex than they really are. He discovered that often the simplest solutions were the best ones, although not always the easiest to derive. And he also retired early in real estate, which, John, tell us about that. What were you doing in real estate?
So, I sort of stumbled into it. I wasn't a genius. I didn't have a super master plan. All I know is that, when I was 18 or I guess about 19 and I moved out of my parents' house, I was looking for somewhere to live and I didn't want to pay rent because I just felt instinctively like paying rent would be a waste of money. So I said, I got to buy a house. So I basically ended up, at 19 or so, trying to buy a house. It's not exactly easy. No credit history, right? Not even a lot